Welcome to Lead the Shift, the living voice of our newsletter, The Shift. Here, we lift up the brilliance of young leaders who are reshaping the economy and our future. At LeadersUp, we hold three truths. Safety must be normalized, opportunity must be equitable, and power must be shared. I'm with Janai Valentine, an inaugural Equity Unleashed Fellow, whose vision shows us how youth economic empowerment is not just a possibility, it's a necessity. Welcome, Janai, to Lead the Shift. Tell us more about yourself.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. Blessed. So my name is Janai Valentine. I am a conscious artist, researcher, curator, and community advocate at the Centerfold. I'm initially from Washington D.C., but I live in Los Angeles now. And yeah, I'm part of the inaugural Equity Unleashed cohort, and it was a great experience. I'm just blessed and happy to be here.
We're so blessed to have you, Janai. When we speak about youth economic empowerment, what does that mean to you? Why do young people in Los Angeles need safety, economic, social, and political safety right now in order to claim their own future?
So I feel like when we talk about economic empowerment, we have to start with talking about the ways in which we were economically disempowered and how do we fill in those gaps, right? So right now, the current administration is doing everything that they can to cripple us and undo all of the socioeconomic progress that we and our ancestors have been making for decades, right? And so, because we've been so historically deprived and not having access to real wealth building tools while also navigating these extractive systems, the reality is that we have to take our future into our own hands. And our futures are not safe in the hands of this government. They do not prioritize our well-being, our mobility, our learning and development, and everything that lies in the foundation of economic empowerment and sustainability. So in short term, I feel like we need to come together and educate and organize and then further incentivize that, because there's so many distractions and obstacles and just false perceptions of who we are. We really have to meet our people where we are, right? And begin to incentivize the need and explain to them the urgency of economic empowerment and reclaiming our power and our futures. Because if we don't, we're seeing, Trump, honestly, at first hand, it felt very discouraging him being in office, but I think it's a clear indicator that now is our time. It's like we need to act now. We need to unionize now. We need to be active in the next elections, the mid-year elections, all of that. We just have to really show up, and I think now is definitely the time for kind of just coming together. And then on a long-term kind of perspective with economic empowerment, that looks like building alternative parallel systems. Right, we're following Malcolm X's philosophy that we need to come together and pool our collective wealth, right, and then begin to build from that. And so, really, like that's where we're headed. We are in that motion. We tried it the MLK way, Dr. MLK, and we can still do this in a peaceful way, but it's just we no longer need to be begging for their approval or acceptance, and we just need to build our own systems. We're the Egyptians. We're the real Egyptians. We have the intellect and the power to do that. We just have to unionize and come together. So, yeah.
So mobilize,
yeah,
unionize, unionize. These are all, vehicles in which we can build economic power.
Yeah.
And particularly with young people. One of the things that I've been really fascinated about as I've been doing more research around just the youth power building movement is that, we really as a country haven't listened to young people since the 1960s. It's been 60 years. And when we listened to young people, there was a shift in civil rights across the nation, right? And I think Angela Davis says it best that freedom is always a constant struggle. Mm-hmm. Where are you seeing young people turning struggle into opportunity right now? And to your point around organizing and innovating and demanding a fair share in Los Angeles, and you kind of got into this as we spoke about the parallel tracks, but in your Equity Unleashed Fellow experience and broader, where have you seen young people really moving the needle and turning that struggle into pathways that generate economic inclusion and mobility and empowerment?
I would say in these incubator spaces, in these spaces of learning and development, like fellowships, like Equity Unleashed, or the other fellowships I've been in, like community planning fellowships with the AmeriCorps and stuff. These are the places where we are really being able to hone in on our ideas that can impact the community. And these learning spaces are so sacred and so precious for us, because I've seen the type of capstone projects, the type of service projects that are created in the Los Angeles area, and how the community is responding to it. And I think it's because the young people are really putting themselves out there, and sometimes going door to door and just having these open conversations. So definitely in these fellowship incubator spaces, learning and development is definitely a key foundational element in our ability to just grow and mobilize ourselves, because we need like-minded individuals. I feel like it's so much mainstream noise outside, and so like I said, these incubator spaces are a safe space to be with like-minded individuals, to really hone in and expand these ideas, and feel like we're not powerless. I feel like it's so important to have community, and not just community in general, but community about what you actually care about, where your value points are, what is really like, on your heart. And so having like-minded individuals who are committed to change, committed to learning, committed to growing, that's where I'm seeing the most change. And then it's reflected in, all the protests with Palestine, with ISIS is showing up. These young people are resilient, okay? And if our ancestors already didn't knock down so many walls, the next generation, if we continue to elevate and educate and bring them together, I mean, we can really build these parallel systems, and we'll have, and we're shaping the future generation of leaders. And that's how we have to look at our young people, because when we're older, they're the ones that are going to be in control. They're the CEOs and the political leaders and stuff that are active in those roles when we're older. So it's really, it's the collective upward mobility for everyone. So pouring into our young people has to be like the priority.
The tide that rises all boats. And I love what you're saying related to, models like the Equity Unleashed Fellows is an incubator of leadership development. And we're big around inclusive leadership development, because that shifts the paradigm in which we've been leading this nation, our state, our city for some time now. It incubates ideas, right? And one of the things that I'm proud about, as I even looked at some of the capstone projects of the Equity Unleashed Fellows, is the radical imagination that is being spurred throughout not just the capstone project, but throughout the entire experience, whether that's the design of the survey that y'all did to collect insights from your peers, to now this economic empowerment agenda that I'm excited that we're going to co-release in October and November. And more importantly, how do we really incubate the power that we all need? And, one of the things I strongly believe is that we can't program our way out of poverty. We got to build power. We have to shift systems. We have to create a new norm where practices are changed to be more inclusive. Janai, you were in a part of this inaugural cohort, and as any pilot goes, there were some hiccups, but share with us more about your experience as an Equity Unleashed Fellow, and experiencing how we share power at LeadersUp.
So initially, when I first met you at the State of the Power People Tour, and the opportunity presented itself, because I have been working on what I thought was like, I was trying to put together like an economic agenda, but I don't have the background, so I didn't really have the experience to do that. And so I was just kind of brainstorming. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, it felt like God was like, your work is not in vain. You know what I mean? We're putting people in place to help bring to life what is on all of our hearts at the very moment, you know what I mean, which is bringing systemic change to our communities. And so when that opportunity presented itself, I was extremely excited. I needed some type of community to explore these ideas with. And so the experience was amazing. Our program director, Shane, really was hands-on a lot with kind of educating us, introducing the participatory action research method, and allowing us to not just make change for the community, but with the community. I think that's one of the main things that I took from this fellowship. It is very important when we're strategizing solutions and different ideas for our community, we have to do it with the community. Yeah. We have to consider their experiences and their stories, their lived experiences, because they are the ones that know. You know, we know too because we're in the community, but everyone has different perspectives, and it's so important to pull in all of the data, all of the perspectives, all of the research that we need to really make sure that we are addressing all of the issues. You know what I mean? And being able to really hone that in. And like I said, I really appreciate these type of spaces. It was the 5 week. It began as a 5-week program, and it was very, very in depth. We had we met twice a week. One was in person, and then one was on Zoom, and it was just very immersive. I should say. I'll say that it was immersive in a way that it allowed me to like really flush out how this idea not only can, you know, maintain as a business structure, but also work with the community and for the community in that way. And so I think really honing in on that hard research method was vital for me, and it kind of shifted just my approach on, you know, creative solutions, because you want to create these solutions, you want to better but you need community. You can do it alone.
To be able to build. It's not, you know, we were not meant to live alone.
We're not.
And, you know, being able to operate, you know, within the spirit of our ancestors of really being committed to communal action in order to reach our own aspirations and collective aspirations becomes a big part of how we really change how America works, and most importantly, change to ensure that LA is affordable, to ensure that LA and its systems, from education to workforce development to employment, really ensure that we're empowering people to flourish. Because we also talk about going from survival to thrival, but I just want to flourish, you know, and see young people living their best lives with choice, with agency, with power. And part of my learning as a CEO as we launched this inaugural Equity Unleashed Fellowship cohort was that we had to, as an organization, decolonize some of our practices as well. And when I say decolonize our practices, so many times in the business world, in the nonprofit space as well, we operate from an extractive frame unknowingly instead of a liberatory frame. And from even things like owning IP and sharing knowledge and being able to really build a platform where psychological, business, moral, leadership, safety, and physical safety is present, was critical for us. So there were some things that we learned as an organization as we are committed to not just utilizing youth voice from an extractive amplification standpoint, but building youth power means that when you share power, there is mutual accountability, there's mutual respect. And to be frank, it is important for folks who have power to be accomplices, right? So even from the standpoint of we're working through our contract agreement with fellows to ensure that we leverage our legal capacity to ensure that we're protecting the fellows' IP and sharing that in a way that continues to stimulate their growth and their ambitions at the same time. So word to the wise, folks that are committed to building youth power, is that when the power shows up from young people, you got to respond in a way that isn't, you know, perpetuating the oppressive practices that have held our community back for centuries.
Absolutely. And I love how you framed that. You say you guys need to decolonize, you know, some of the practices. And that's so true. And if people did more, you know, introspecting in that way, and like, okay, like, you know, I'm here to help, but, you know, am I showing up in this way? It's really just accountability. It's about, you know, being willing to shift and pivot and grow. You know what I mean? And sometimes you don't know how it's showing up, but And I've talked to other fellows, not in this cohort, but previously, and we were talking about how the nonprofit space has been shifting over time, and it's like those extractive systems are slowly seeping in to the nonprofit sector in that space, and I think that it's so dangerous to do that because it's a safe space. If we don't have the nonprofit sector or community space to really be there for each other and uplift each other in these ways, like we're just becoming our oppressors. We're taking on their practices and what they stand for. So I appreciate that y'all have really being that trailblazer. You know what I mean? And I hope that other nonprofits can learn from this and being able to, like, all right, this is a responsibility that I have. And look at it.
Absolutely. I mean, our ancestor Audre Lorde reminded us we can't use the tools of the oppressor to deconstruct what they have built, right? So if we're going to, really reimagine, economic empowerment, economic mobility, economic inclusion, can't use the tools of the oppressor to actually deconstruct and rebuild. We have to come in carrying the energy and the spirit of our ancestors around, community.
Yeah.
And for those listening, Janai, funders, business leaders, policymakers, youth organizers, what would you tell them about why they must join us in this struggle? Why must we build a future where safety is assured, opportunity is shared, and power is collective?
Because the time is now. It's almost like now or never. Honestly, with Trump in office, we don't know what to expect in these next few years.
Right. And now stands for no opportunity wasted.
Come on now. That's exactly what it stands for. And it's like, if we're not looking alive, you know what I mean, and looking at certain social this man is trying to enforce a dictatorship. And at that point, everything that we've worked for, our ancestors have worked for, will literally be stripped from us. You know what I mean? And so we have to take the power in our own hands now and come together, unionize, have this collective pool of funding and resources, and grow ourselves. You know what I mean? Like now is the time. We have to create these spaces, work on these economic agendas, and come together to make these ideas a reality.
Absolutely. And I think that at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. No time can be wasted. We must act now. And sometimes we need to operate under the radar until we're ready to hit, above the fold. And I think, what you're teaching us, Janai, is that youth power is not symbolic. It's structural.
Absolutely.
When young people are safe, when opportunity is equitable, when power is shared, young people do not just inherit the future, they create it. And that's what I'm excited about, is the radical imagination of not just our Equity Unleashed fellows, but a broader community and movement of young people committed to creating the future. And this is why the shift exists. It's to amplify the voices of young people and leaders, to showcase leadership across a broad spectrum of ideas and points of view, and to invite all of us, that could be funders, that could be companies, system leaders, movement builders, to make our place in the struggle. Because as Angela Davis tells us, we must act as if it is possible to radically transform the world, and we must do it together. Janai, I'm so thankful that you were able to join the Lead the Shift inaugural podcast interview series. We're going to continue to interview young leaders, cross-generational leaders and cross-sectoral leaders like yourselves, so that we can continue to hear directly from those that have the lived wisdom, the intersectional experiences, and most importantly, the radical imagination to change how America works. Thank you so much, Janai, for joining us.
Thank you so much.